Welcome back to Guiding Connection. I'm Jason Gray, and I'm sitting down today with Chris Prager from the Campbell County Fire Department. And it's really properly summertime now, and things are getting warmer. What fire prevention tips have you got for us this month?
There's actually quite a lot happening. Thanks for having me first off.
Yeah.
But as you said, weather's getting warmer. Things are starting to move in that summer direction for us for fire prevention, fires, and things of that nature. Vegetation is starting to die. The lack of moisture, the lack of rain, especially in May and June, has really caused some issues. So as we're seeing this vegetation start to die, grass start to die, we're seeing kind of an uprise in fires and wildland fires already. So the biggest thing that I really wanted to talk about was how to protect you, yourself, your family, your home, your property, and how to even prevent those things. So going into kind of how do you protect your home, your family, and prevent these potentially. One of the biggest things you can do is maintain your landscaping. Maintain your yard, the area around your yard. If you have land, maintain your land around your house. You want to keep a nice little buffer of 30 to 50 feet around your house of nice cut grass. So that way it's less fuel for a fire to burn if anything were to happen leading up to it. Trim your trees. There are a lot of trees in city limits, not so much out and about around in the county, but if you've got any overhanging your decks, overhanging your overhangs for your decks, things of that nature, just trim back the limbs a little bit and make sure you're pruning them and maintaining them. Especially in the county, there are a lot of decks around homes and things of that nature.
Sure.
Don't store things underneath them like, your piles of leaves and branches or things like that. Don't store gasoline or anything underneath in those areas. Because as wildfire moves closer and as it gets better and heat builds up, those things become more susceptible to that and could cause a larger fire. On a different note, a lot of wildland fires around the United States that go through homes and such aren't necessarily set by the fire moving up to a house and catching that house on fire. A lot of them are set by embers that travel via wind currents.
Oh, sure.
40, 50 feet in the air, and then they just deposit onto a house, onto a deck, onto leaves, something even, a quarter mile down the road. Just as it gets carried, it's got the wind and it's already burning, so it's got the heat, so it just maintains that heat to where when it drops, it becomes a smoldering fire. So as we have more wildland fires, things to pay attention to are where they're located compared to you, what's the wind like, and things like that. So maintaining your landscaping and what you have stored around your house can be really prevalent and can actually save you, depending. I think the other big thing that we're going to be running into that could be comparable to last year would be things that cause fires in summertime. Cigarette butts, smoking materials, discarding smoking materials were a large portion of fires last year, of wildland fires. Improperly disposing them into potted plants, gardens, mulch, things like that can easily start a fire from the morning. And then you can go on to when you have a breezy day, it gets the oxygen it needs, it's got the heat, and then you get a fire after a couple hours, which turns into a deck fire or a home fire.
Sure.
So definitely we want people to know, do not dispose of smoking material into any gardens, potted plants, planters, mulch piles, mulch gardens, medians, or tall grass.
Yeah.
Avoid that at all possible. Proper disposal of smoking material is into something that is a non-combustible material, like a metal pail with sand inside. Some people like to use water, which is good until it evaporates. And then you just have smoking material at the bottom of the pail and you have to fill it up. If you can regularly fill it up and maintain that, great. But if it's something you might forget about, you might want to buy a little bit of place sand and fill up a metal pail and then dispose of your cigarette butts in that, because that fully smothers the embers that are on the end of a cigarette. On top of that, littering. Wyoming is very windy, is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And if you litter or you drop a cigarette butt out of your window while driving, the potential for it to roll into something while still partially lit, like a mulch or a median or tall grass, is an absolute possibility. So to avoid that, properly discard of your smoking material if you smoke while driving. and make sure that you are dumping your ash and cigarette butts into the proper canister before you fully dispose of them.
Sure.
Just little things that people might take for granted during the winter time, and doing it in the summertime could cause a large disaster, unfortunately.
I mean, you shouldn't litter at any time,
Correct.
but in the summer, if you do it with cigarette butts, you might cause a fire,
Absolutely. And
which is, worse than just littering.
it is, and the potential for it to hinder someone else's livelihood is very large for those instances. And we've seen that where one fire may go across 3 or 4 different landowners' land. And unfortunately, that hinders their cattle, that hinders their hay growth, that could really hinder how they use their land and cause major damage. That's the unfortunate circumstance that could come from something like that. Something we saw last year, going back to you said don't litter, but you could start fires. Potted plants.
Yeah.
We run on those every single year. People go out in the morning, smoke a cigarette, dispose of it into a pot with soil. Some of those soils have nutrients or even combustible material inside of them just because it's dry dirt and other things inside of it that's mixed in. And it smolders. And when they leave for work, it's still smoldering, but they don't know about it. Sun comes through at about noon, we get nice wind. It's heating up that potted plant, giving it more heat and oxygen. And depending on where it's located, whether it be just on your deck, if it's a wooden deck, next to your home with wood siding, vinyl siding, those burn. Mm-hmm. And so then you have a fire that burns up the side of your house and on the outside, which leads to insurance claims, insurance issues. We then have to verify potential smoke in your house, which again, things that burn now, plastics and such, are carcinogens, which could cause potential health hazards. So just avoiding those in general and kind of being cognizant of what you're doing and making sure you're doing it properly could really help prevent large issues this summer. I think moving to that, especially if you live in the county, at any time during the year, if you would like to burn, your weeds, or you're looking to burn, trash or anything like that, we ask that you call into Campbell County Sheriff's Office. And you can call their phone number any time of the day, any time of the year, 307-682-7271, and let them know what you're doing, what you're burning, when you're burning, how long you're burning. And that can help mitigate potential issues, especially during these early months of summertime where maybe there isn't a burn ban, but people are still keeping an eye out for wildland fires.
Oh, sure.
You see smoke coming up from the neighbors and you're not sure if they're home, and the first thing people do would be to call 911, which is proper. Then we end up responding out to those areas, and maybe we find out that it's just a burn barrel.
Oh.
Which we're here to help at any time of the day. We just want to help mitigate some of that, so in case of emergencies, we are ready to act how we need to.
Sure.
So I think if just maintaining that, call the sheriff's office, let them know what you're doing. They can explain the rules, and if anything, they can forward anybody to us, and we can explain kind of the rules, regulations, and go forward with that, with helping people go through and doing what they want to do on their property. The last thing that I really want to touch on, because it's getting close, is the camporee.
Sure.
The camporee is August 5th through August 11th. It's bringing a large influx of people to Campbell County who have never been here before. Mm-hmm. I know the numbers have ranged quite high, anywhere from 55 to 65,000. I don't have any of those numbers. It's just based on what I've heard and read. The big thing is people will start arriving a week or two before the August 5th to help set up for meetings.
Yeah.
So we're going to start seeing those influxes fairly quickly leading into the end of July. And we just want people to know that Campbell County Fire Department is working very closely with camporee and Camplex staff through this planning process to make sure we can help maintain the safety of our community and those coming to join our community for that time.
Sure.
So I think the biggest thing for that is to pay attention to any news outlets that are giving out any information, ask questions about it. It's a first-time event for Campbell County. Mm-hmm. It's a very large event that most people have never dealt with, or even something this large people haven't dealt with. And we just want people to know that we are working closely to try and maintain our community safety and their safety while they're here.
Oh, good.
So
All right. And is there anything else for July?
I think the biggest thing is leading up to July 4th. Please enjoy your time with your family. Stay safe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call the Campbell County Fire Department. And we'll help get you through as best as we can.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.